Duke, you suck.
You shut your mouth!
Welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. And now, Duke Durango.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. I am honored and proud to have as my guest today, third generation WWE superstar, two-time Divas champion, Natalie Neidhart. Natty, welcome, and thank you so much for being on my program.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. When you asked me to do this, I was totally honored to be asked by you. We know of you as Jordy, but the rest of the world knows of you as Duke Durango. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, again, with your schedule, the fact that you had the time or could squeeze me into your schedule is just, it's flattering to say the least. Before we started the show, Natalie and I were talking kind of about our formative years in Stampede Wrestling, training in the dungeon. And I just want to jump back to that. I kind of cut her off to start because we were missing some really good stuff. So Natty, if you just want to if you can pick up on your train of thought, we were talking earlier about, what it was like being in the dungeon, where we all came from, and sort of the values we had there.
No, I mean, it was such a special time. And that's what I was saying, earlier, that, we don't realize how important those early years are. Looking back on it, they were so special. And so they were really the building blocks of my career that helped me to achieve everything that I have today. But, when we were living it, we were wrestling at the Ogden Legion and the Bonus Sportsplex. And, we were just scraping by, and we were happy to do it all for literally nothing. And when I look back at what I was making and how much work I was putting into it, it really taught me so much about how much I wanted to do this. And, when people ask me about getting into the industry and they tell me they love wrestling and they watch me on TV or they watch me on Total Divas or they, have followed my career, they don't understand how important it is to find what it is that you love and to run hard with it. And when I found what it was that I loved, which is pro wrestling, being able to be given that opportunity in Stampede Wrestling was everything. And I kind of fell into it through the family, but then I 20 years later realized how pivotal it was for me as a human being. It taught me a lot about resilience. It taught me a lot about work ethic. It taught me a lot about relationships. It taught me a lot about what matters to me. It taught me a lot about fighting for things that I believe in. And I learned all of that, those early years with you and with your brother and with TJ and with Harry and, this motley crew of people that we worked with, from Bruce and Ross to, just the whole crew that we worked with, from Jamie and Anna and Harmony. And, it's I look back on it now and I laugh, but it was such a special time for me to really hone my craft. And I definitely would not be where I am today without Stampede Wrestling. And of course, you, as you probably have been told many times, were a locker room leader in Stampede Wrestling and somebody that all of the boys and the girls looked up to so much. So when you asked me to do your podcast, it wasn't something I hesitated to do. I really wanted to jump at the opportunity to pay it forward and to say thank you.
Oh, man. Well, that's I hope you're not trying to make me cry, because somebody else already got me talking about TJ like that this week. Very, very flattering. I mean, I've always said success is, there's different measurements of it. And, did I ever reach the peak you guys did at professional wrestling? I didn't, but, I was very fortunate. If I never made $1 wrestling, I met some really, really, really high quality people that I'm proud to say that now. I mean, I've known TJ, I think TJ was 14. You know what I mean? I was maybe 22 or 23 when I met TJ. So we're talking 25, 26 years that this relationship spans, and so it's, I'm fiercely loyal to the Hart family and everything they've given me through wrestling. And so just to have you extend your hand to me once again as a member of the Hart family, to be able to help me out, lend your name to my show, is just something that, like I say, is very, 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 very much appreciated.
Of course. It's my pleasure. It's my honor. And like I said, I wouldn't be where I am today without the people that helped me in my early years of my career, because, I never, that's the thing about the Hart family, is that we're very quirky. We're a little rough around the edges, but we're very loyal too. And like, for me, I always remember where I came from. I think about Bruce and Ross and the things that they taught me. And, it's because of them that I have such great fundamentals.
Right.
And when I look back on certain people, like I said, and I brought this up, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass or anything, but about being a locker room leader. Today, people in my locker room say, Natty is a locker room leader in WWE, but like, I remember when I was in Stampede Wrestling, you were that for the men and the women in WWE. And it's so important to strive for that. And even if you're watching this and you're a fan and you're somebody that maybe, isn't at that level, every single one of us should strive in our lives to lead by example and to be a good person and to do what's right and to work hard and to give back. And so many people, whether I'm playing a role of a good guy or a bad guy, I truly believe in like just paying it forward. And I just remember you always doing that. And I think that's why I've had so much longevity in my career, is because of people like you that set that example of like, you gotta, we have to play our roles. It's pro wrestling, but it's also fun. Right. And it's also fun to see people reach their dreams. It's fun to see stories being told. It's fun to have an amazing match and go out to Boston Pizza after and be excited with your friends and
spend your whole paycheck eating dinner.
Exactly. But like, I look back on that moment and I'm thinking, gosh, how many times did the ring truck break down? Oh. How many times did we only have 20 people in our audience? How many times did everything completely fall apart? But at the end of the day, we came together, exactly. And this last year, especially with this pandemic, I noticed that more than ever with the women in WWE, like, because I'm in the female locker room, like there were so many things that went wrong. There was people that got COVID. There was things that fell apart. There was, like when everything just went up in flames, when you have somebody there that's like a pillar and a foundation, you realize that being a leader is so important. It transcends beyond a wrestling match.
Right.
So I learned that early on in Stampede Wrestling, and you were somebody that we all looked up to. Same, TJ considers you such a role model and a leader. And, it's just important to have those kind of people in our lives. And I'm so lucky that I've done so much fun stuff in WWE. And I started wrestling when I was very young. I was 18, 19 when I had my first match. But like, I am so lucky that I got to do what I love. Like I was able to reach some really cool dreams in WWE, but like, I still consider my Stampede Wrestling days as being like some of the most special times in my career.
Well, as I look back on the Stampede Wrestling times, it was before I had things like a mortgage, you know what I mean? Like, our whole life was it was fun because we had to have a job to pay our bills and stuff, but literally your life was, you get to work, you work your day job, then you get to the show. The next day, you go to another town, you find a gym, you work out, you go to the show, you go home, you go to work. Like, you were busy, but there was no stress about it. We were just wrestling and having fun. And I don't think, maybe we were too young and dumb to realize the stress we should have had, but it was just so much fun. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it was just such a good time. And it's, and I think back, excuse me, to some of the stuff that we thought we were dealing with. And I used to get so mad, and it's no secret that I used to get so mad at Bruce and Ross sometimes. And I think back, could you imagine dealing with 20 of us? Right. Like, that's the
thing is the reason why you would get mad is because you had passion. And I deal with that a lot nowadays in WWE. Like, there's a lot of us that have so much passion. TJ has passion. I have passion. Vince McMahon has passion. We all have so much passion. And I think that's so important to not lose that. That's why you get mad. That's why you get frustrated. The other day, I had a really cool conversation with Vince McMahon about something. And he said to me something that really sticks out more than in it, you'll understand this, but he said to me, he's like, the minute that I stop critiquing you is the minute that you have to worry, because it means that I'm not paying attention to you anymore. And it's true. It's like the minute that we stop freaking out and we don't have passion and we don't explode and we don't, it's really important to sometimes have those moments, those meltdowns, because those meltdowns lead to great breakthroughs. But it's about passion. And there's moments that I'll come back from a match and Vince will have this and he'll say that, and he'll do, he'll be unhappy with something, or he'll have this critique. And I realize that he really cares. he really, really wants me to be better. In the same way, I know Ross and Bruce aren't Vince McMahon, but like, I remember and I remember my frustration sometimes when I'd have a match and Ross, I would have the car ride home with Ross.
And
And
Ross, I've heard stories about Ross's driving, and I love Ross like he's my own family, but I've heard some stories about Ross's driving.
well, I would have to ride with Ross. I would always ride with Ross, and he would have this like 4-hour car rides telling me everything that I did wrong.
Right.
And I remember like just feeling like, gosh, I'm such a failure. I can't do anything right. And then like somehow the next day we were doing it all over again because we have passion.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow. That's how you learn. That's how you build a thick skin. And like to this day, nearly 20 years into the business, I still want to learn. I still want to grow. I still want to get angry, get worked up, get fired up, get excited, get happy, get sad, get everything in between because it really translates to passion. You look at some of the greatest pro wrestlers in this whole entire industry, like Brett, like, you know, Steve Austin, like Shawn Michaels, like TJ Wilson. I include TJ in that list because I really think that TJ is like one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. He was one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. He may not have reached that level that Brett did, but like he was so sharp. But I remember him having these like moments of like frustration. It's because he had passion and you had passion. I had passion. It's like, it's a little alarming when somebody doesn't care, you know? So I look for that sometimes with the girls in the locker room. If somebody just is so lackadaisical, it's sometimes, I feel like it's sometimes because they don't care.
Well, and I think, I mean, you can be passionate about something too and not be hungry. And I think that part of it's the difference is, you know, for somebody like you with all the success you've had, you know, between, you know, a lot of people might be content just to get by on a family name. I mean, you not only have one, but two famous last names, right? Between Hart and Neidhart. You know, or you could just get by in the wrestling, or you could just get by in the Total Divas, but you choose to work hard at all of those things because you make a decision. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to get there. And I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone and get it done. And I think that's, you know, that's a really good example for people. Like you say, it's not without frustration or hardship, you know, or setback, right? It's all about, just like you say, grinding it out. You just got to keep, you know, I've developed the phrase over the last few years, embrace the grind. You know what I mean? Like it's because that's what we came from. Are you still here?
Sorry, Gordy, that was like our power went out.
Oh, that's okay.
Is it the fuse?
Hold on. I'll just pause the recording here.
I'm having a glass of white wine.
As you should be. Okay, folks, we're back with WWE diva Natalia. She had a little bit of a circuit breaker issue. With that break, we're going to transition quickly. Something that's really interesting for me that's going on in your life currently is your tag team with Tamina. I love, first of all, that you're third generation. She's second generation. I love the names involved. I love that the realism you both bring to what you do. How did that come about? Whose idea was it to put you guys together?
Tamina and I are just really close friends, and you know, we've been friends for a long time in WWE, and we both had like, you know, we both, like anybody in WWE, we've had our shares of ups and downs, but we're really good friends in real life. And I just felt like when I looked at the landscape of all the women in the SmackDown locker room, I felt like if there was anybody that I wanted to have my back, it was her, because she understands a lot about legacy. She understands, like, both of us have this incredible lineage. Our bloodlines are, you know, when you look at like the tag team history, I posted this picture on my social media page of like Yokozuna and Owen Hart and Owen and Davey and my dad and Brett and the Head Shrinkers and the Wild Samoans. And you look at, you know, Owen with the Nation of Domination, and just like how our families have constantly Samoan dynasty, and I'm with the Hart dynasty, and I'm like, there's just nobody that, like, she's a real badass. She is one of the people. I mean, like, we work with tough women in general, but if I were to say like the toughest women I've ever worked with, this is including Ronda Rousey, the toughest women I've ever worked with, Tamina's number one. There's no, Tamina will, she's somebody that I would not want to mess with in a dark alley. She is somebody that, like, she's fierce, she's scary. And she doesn't get all
Flat
the
out go.
accolades. Yeah, she's scary. Like she's a scary bitch, to put it mildly. Like she's tough. She doesn't take I don't want to swear too much, but lately I've been swearing like a trucker. She's somebody that doesn't put up with people's garbage. She's the real deal. She's tough as nails. She's beautiful on the inside and out. She's got a heart of gold, but you cannot cross her, because if you do, she will end you. And I just think I have so much respect for her. So when I was looking around at the landscape, I was like, this would be so cool to work with her. And like, I really love her and I respect her. And like, I think she's also a great human. Right. And I don't have to align myself with anyone, but I really wanted to align myself with her because I just think she's awesome.
Right. Well, what I like though is, I mean, especially since you've been with her, is kind of a new attitude. You know, I'm liking the no more Mrs. Nice Natalia. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
You know, sometimes a person's got to pull out all the stops and do what you got to do to get to the top. And I'm kind of liking watching you, you know, sort of say to hell with what people think. And I'm going to, you know, you're doing it your way now. And it's something I really appreciate.
Yeah. And it's funny because like we get to TV and, you know, we have certain things that we're going to do, that we're going to say, that we're going to, you know, we're going to have this, we're going to have this promo, we're going to have, and I started to realize that if it doesn't work out at TV, because sometimes things get cut, somebody's time goes heavy, somebody's promo went long, and it can affect us. So I started using my own social media platforms between Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I have over 10 million followers. Wow. So yeah, so I was like, well, why not use my own platform to send a message? And so I started filming my own videos, basically saying that like, I'm tired of being taken for granted. I'm tired of being nice. I'm tired of walking around like everything's okay. When deep down inside, I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know what I bring to the table, but I've been so nice to everybody through the years. And I've kind of realized that being nice doesn't always get you ahead. Standing up for what you believe in, having passion, having convictions, having goals, and sometimes stepping on toes. That is what, you know, what will take us to the top. And Tamina's the same way. She's somebody that, like, in real life, besides her character, Serona is somebody that's so nice and so sweet and so polite and so respectful, but I know what she's capable of with her hands. Right. I know that she could annihilate anyone. And we've just gotten, you know, for the last decade, both of us have just been way too nice, and it's time to stop. And Owen actually once said, enough is enough. It's time for a change. And I've been channeling that. And I've been really thinking about that and thinking like, I don't want to be somebody that my grandfather, and I've said this before in my promos, I don't want to be somebody that Stu would go, she's a nice girl. I want to be somebody that Stu would go, she's going to basically like, this girl's going to do some damage. Yeah. You know, I want to really break the mold and to step outside the box and color outside the lines. And Tamina's the perfect person to do that with.
Well, I for one, I'm glad to see it. I'm excited to see it. You know, I'm really excited to see you guys in that tag team title chase coming up here to WrestleMania. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited, you know, especially when we saw the Super Bowl. I'm right in Tampa Bay. There's so much going on because we just had the Super Bowl here. Bucks became Super Bowl champions, which was really cool. And, you know, it was so awesome to see fans in the crowd. I know it wasn't a full capacity crowd, but there were still about 20,000 fans in the crowd. Right. And it got all of us in WWE really excited because we know that we're going to be at the Raymond James Stadium, the same place that the Super Bowl was held. And Tamina and I have tag team gold on our minds, and we are relentless. We are going to stop at nothing to get what we want and what we deserve. And it's exciting. And the chase is really, really exciting. And I'm as Brett would say, leaving no man untested.
No whoa man untested.
Yeah, no man untested. As my dad would say, we're going to get hungry and forget our manners, but we're very excited for that.
See, I think that's actually Stu's description. We're going to get hungry and forget our manners. I think that's exactly where you're at today. I like it. I like that.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe my grandfather would like that. So that I can.
I don't want to say anything, but I think I see a t-shirt there. I don't want to say anything. I'm just saying. So this is going to maybe sound like a weird question. Obviously, Did you and Tamina know each other before you both signed? Like with, with your
No,
families? Okay, so it wasn't somewhere where you'd ever met backstage or anything like that as kids.
no, but
Okay.
we like Tamina is like the backbone of her family.
Right.
I watched her at Rocky Johnson's funeral and she was just organizing everything and like taking care of everything and making sure everyone was taken care of. And, she just takes so much pride in her family. She just loves her family so much, but she is really, a lot of people don't know that about Tamina. She's the backbone of her family. She's a cornerstone in our locker room. She also is a locker room leader. And there was an incident where Chelsea Green got hurt a few months ago. She broke her wrist on SmackDown. And Tamina was in the match, and Tamina stayed with Chelsea and stayed on the floor with her for as long as she possibly could, making sure she was okay.
Right.
She's really just like an incredible person. She's somebody that I just look up to so much. And again, like it goes back to what I was saying about you being a leader. Like we need more leaders in this world. We need more people that strive to be leaders and that strive to like set a good example for people. So whether she's in character or not, she's just a really good person.
Well, Natty, I mean, I've known you for a really, really, really long time. I think I met you, you were maybe 15. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
remember you
yeah.
working at the Humpties and the Montanas. And I mean, you paid your dues, you know what I mean? And so to watch where you started out to where you've come from, and the example you've set, I was doing a little bit of research, when you think you know something about somebody, you should probably take a look just to make sure you're right. And I think only Sasha Banks has been on the roster longer than you. Do you know what I mean? Like you two have watched a lot of divas come and go that didn't understand that this is a marathon.
Yeah.
And I think that you, whether you realize it or not, have led a lot of women to the top of the mountain without them, maybe wanting to admit it or realize it. But I think you're maybe not giving yourself enough credit for the leadership you've had in that locker room for the last 10 or 12 years. I mean,
Yeah.
this is going to sound extremely rude, and I do not want to come across this way, but you've worked with a lot of really, really talented ladies that unfortunately couldn't actually lace your boots, and made them look good doing it with a smile on your face. And I think that that in itself is an incredible, incredible inspiration, but also an example of true leadership, that you understand it as a team sport, that, I'll get over if I get this person over. And, there's been a lot of people that have come and gone, and because of example and leadership, I think that's one of the big reasons you're still around there.
I really just like, I really love what I do. I love the women that I work with. I really love helping people. And like, I know that's not the answer that everybody wants to hear sometimes, especially when you're supposed to be a heel character, but just totally off the record. Even though we're on film, like some of my greatest accomplishments weren't matches that I won. Some of my greatest accomplishments, the greatest accomplishments I've had in the industry, have been watching other people like have these special moments, like Charlotte Flair in 2014, giving her that moment at, the very first NXT takeover, where we had this match where nobody even knew who Charlotte was. And they knew that she was Rick's daughter, but they didn't know what she could do. And I remember Triple H, basically saying to me, you don't have a time limit. I'm just going to let you have this match. You have free reign to do whatever you want.
Wow.
And I was like, I've never had anybody tell me that I don't have any handcuffs on me, that I can just do whatever I want. And it was Triple H that really, like, he was like, I just want you to just be you, and you just take control of this and do your thing. And, long story short, Charlotte and I had one of the most epic women's matches of all time in front of 200 people, that people to this day, years and years later, are still talking about it, because it was like you saw me trying to show that, like, I always belonged, and then you saw Charlotte Flair trying to show that she could hang. Right. And it was just this beautiful story that didn't even have a lot of build, but it was just pro wrestling at its finest.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that kind of stuff. I live for that kind of stuff. I love what I do. And, it wasn't until this past year that I realized at some point in 2020, I think it might've been in April, May, a fan messaged me and said to me, that they were like, Natalia, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you've had the most matches of any woman in WWE history, like ever.
Yeah.
And then we started to dig a little deeper, and they were like, but you've also had the most wins of any woman in WWE history. And then I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then we started to dig a little deeper, and they were like, you've had the most pay-per-view matches of any woman in WWE history. You've had the most WrestleMania matches of any woman in WWE history. And I was like, I am just so lucky that I've had so many opportunities to work with so many incredible women from every walk of life, even women that, may have only had a short career in WWE. I've been able to touch so many people. I was able to go to Saudi Arabia and have the first ever women's match with Lacey Evans that, to be the first women to ever perform in that country, we opened up a door that had never been opened before.
Absolutely.
And we made that night in Saudi Arabia, Lacey Evans and I, we made headlines around the world. It was on CNN. It was it was on Chinese newspapers. Like, it was made global news that, like, literally we changed the course of the way women do things, in a place that had never done that for women before. And
That's
so
incredible.
I've just been like, I know I've had some roadblocks in WWE, but I've also just had so many epic moments that I've been able to watch myself rise to the occasion, but also help other women rise to the occasion. And the match with Lacey was especially like meaningful for me because Lacey was a Marine. She's also a mom, and she's somebody that grew up in a family that was very broken. I know her dad struggled with all sorts of mental health issues and, all sorts of things. And she, she had a really troubled childhood. And when I see Lacey and I saw that she was getting that moment, she called her daughter right before the match, her little daughter, Summer. And she's like, Mommy's about to go out there. We were about to perform in front of 40,000 people in Saudi Arabia. And she was calling her daughter just to tell her that she loved her. And I was like, I'm wrestling a woman that was a Marine, a mom, and overcame so much childhood trauma. And I get to give this woman this special magical moment. It's like, that to me is more special than main eventing WrestleMania. That's more special than winning a championship. You're changing somebody's life. And we're setting this example for women around the world, especially in Saudi Arabia, where front row, all these women in Saudi Arabia were just crying, and they were trying to hug us and take pictures with us. And they had never felt that before for women. And, just knowing that you're being a part of this great change in the world and the responsibility that you have for that, it transcends far beyond anything I've ever done before. But I am just so lucky, so grateful, so blessed. So like, I always try to remember like where I came from, because you just never know when this can all be gone. Right. And like, if I don't remember who I am and where I came from, like, I don't know what I stand for. You know what I mean? So that's why, like, I really try to think about those when shit hits the fan and when times get tough. I really try to think about those special things that I've done in WWE that, like, I never would have had the chance to do that without working here.
Right.
So I can have a pity party sometimes when I'm like, ugh, I should have had this. I could have done that. I bet, why didn't I have all these other accolades? But like, I've had so much success. I've taken care of my family. My dad was dying from Alzheimer's, and like, I was able to give him this beautiful life before he died. And like, I was able to surprise my mom with a dream home and make sure she drives a beautiful car and make sure that my family is taken care of. Like, it's just, I literally am so grateful for this dream life that I live.
Right. Well, and I think, you kind of mention, wow. I'm sort of stuck on your dad thing, because I don't know if I've actually talked to you since, other than a message. I think that constant appreciation of, from where you come from to what you have, that, your name might have got you in the door. Sure, it might have given you some opportunity, but you don't stay there for, 13 years or 14 years because of a name. You stay there because you work hard.
Right.
And my wife always laughs at me, poor Wendy. But I'm always watching some sort of sports, like the Super Bowl is a prime example. But, and again, watching your match in Saudi there, that, I literally like to use the phrase, like, we're literally watching history. Do you know what I mean? And Natty, I know a fair number of people. I'm not a young man. I deal with, in customer service for the last, 15 or 20 years. So I've met a lot of people. But I've met very, very few people that I can say have had literally had an impact on the world. Do you know what I mean? Like, to be able to go to a different part of the planet and change the perception of your gender. It's something that not a lot of people have the opportunity to do, but not a lot of people have the shoulders to bear that. And I think
Yeah.
that's, more of a tell on, again, what kind of leadership and what kind of human you are. And when you have those attributes, it's no wonder that you're, of course, a mature version, but you're still the same lady I knew, 20 years ago when we started training in the dungeon.
Yeah.
And it's something that when I talk about people, and don't get me wrong, I drop your name like, oh, really? Oh, you know who you know? Yeah. Well, I know Natalia. So I do. People have to wear steel toes when they come over to my house. Because again, it's just, I'm so proud of what you guys have achieved and what you've been able to do in the business with hard work and solid values that you've never lost. It's incredible to me.
I've really tried to stay true to who I am inside, because I just know that, I think my dad was so important to my childhood. This is, it's funny, Jordy, I've never done a podcast with anybody like this. Like, I've never opened up like this with anyone about
well, thank you.
Like, it's really cool that we can have this kind of honest, open discussion. But like, my dad, growing up with my dad being a famous WWE wrestler, I watched my dad have like lots of success, but I watched my dad lose everything. Right. When we were kids, we had everything and then we lost everything. We had everything, we lost everything. We had everything, we lost everything. So it really reminded me so much that like, if you don't appreciate what you have, it can be gone tomorrow. And
right.
Like, you have to really appreciate the little things, like through all aspects of life. And like, my dad was on top, and then he was fired, and he dealt with a lot of, substance abuse issues. And he really had a lot of demons that like, I didn't understand until like years and years later,
right.
Like until I was an adult. And even until after my dad passed away, I was like, my dad was just trying so hard to do the best that he could, but he really just struggled. And back when my dad was young, there weren't the kind of resources that we have now in WWE, where we have a wellness program. We have, like, if somebody's going through something, we have, the company they really have our backs. They'll get you help. They'll, aid you in whatever. Like, we just have such a great support system now. The company's evolved so much from every aspect, but like my dad, he was just sort of winging it. And like, I look back and think, God, he was doing the best that he could. Like, we are all just doing the best that we can. And I appreciate that, like, looking back on it, because he made a lot of mistakes. Like, even as a parent, he wasn't always the best parent, but he was doing the best that he knew how to do. Nobody gives anybody a crash course on how to be a parent. But now I look back on it and go, like, my dad was so, he was flawed, but he was really cool. Right. He wasn't perfect, but I mean, damn, he was different. And, he taught me a lot of incredible life lessons that I still carry with me today in WWE that keep me humble, so that, I might have all these followers, and I might be on TV every week, and I might have been on, I did Total Divas for 7 years. I did almost 150 episodes of reality TV that went like mainstream. Really? And even now, even to this day, I'll walk into a grocery store and somebody will hear my voice and they'll go, you're Natty from Total Divas, like, because they recognize my voice.
Yeah.
But I still think back to, just about where I came from, what it was like to grow up in this business, and to see, like, we went from feast to famine over and over again. And then hearing my mom talk about those stories when she was growing up with Stu, and when the business was booming for Stampede Wrestling, when the wrestling business was booming, they were doing great. And then there was times they couldn't even turn the heat on in their house. Right. And so it just puts things in perspective that, like, everything can be gone tomorrow. So don't forget who you are, because you're always going to have yourself. When shit hits the fan and everything else is gone and you're no longer famous anymore, you still have to live with you. Yeah. So it's like, my relationships are very important to me. I keep a very small circle of people in my life, but I was listening the other day to The Rock talk about, like, he likes to keep a really strong, good core group of people around him, because that makes you so much stronger when you surround yourself with strong people. Yeah. And so I have my mom, Jenny, TJ, and a few really close friends around me that keep me really grounded and stable, and just kind of keep me, like, humble, because being humble it's very underrated, but it's very important.
Well, it's funny you say about the tight circle of friends. In the last, I don't know, I don't make a lot of new friends, and I kind of say, like, I'm like the mafia, right? Like, there's no new members. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you kind of get grandfathered in. I have a hard time, because, like you say, you surround yourself with like-minded people that, you can trust and depend on. right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize, like, when the shit comes down, most people don't have enough people on one hand that they can count on, and I
Yeah.
think that, it's important to know who those people are in your life. And again, if you don't know who you are or where you came from, that can be hard to recognize, especially in a position
Yeah.
like yours where, work's a different thing, but outside of work, you probably deal with a lot of people that just want to say yes to Natty. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of who you are, the position you hold, the celebrity you have, and to not accept that as normal. Do you know what I mean? That you don't
Yeah.
walk in somewhere and just assume that people are going to say yes because, well, I'm Natalia. Don't I like, you remember Aiden Pringle? I learned this phrase from him, and it's the best one. It's, don't you know who I think I am?
That's
And you
actually
don't have
brilliant.
that.
That's an Instagram caption right there.
But the thing is, Natty, you don't have that about you, and neither does TJ. Like, as much as you guys have accomplished in your life, and Harry's exactly the same. And I mean, even Eric, when I was speaking to him earlier, you guys have achieved so much. And again, you've matured, but you're still the same, like you and I were talking before we came on here, and you're still the same silly, fun, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
now that if someone pisses you off, your attitude's to the point now, if someone upsets you, they're going to get slapped in the teeth, where maybe 3 months ago that might not have happened.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm very grateful for what I have, but I just always try to remember where I started. And that's why I think, like, it's so important to, again, lead with the platform that I have. It's important to send that message that, like, I'm not better than anyone else because I have more followers, or because I've been on TV, or because I've had a women's championship, or because I've been on a reality show. Like, I am who I am because I have good morals. I have good values. I treat people right. I get pissed off just like anyone else, but I have my good moments. I have my bad moments. I'm human,
Right.
and I think that's very relatable. I think that's why I love doing reality TV so much, because I really like to be able to share that with the world, that we're all flawed.
For sure.
We all make mistakes. We all break down. We all have meltdowns. We all make comebacks. We all just go through so much, and we're all just trying to do the best that we can. And that, it's funny because reality TV taught me a lot about, like, showing your imperfections. And that's what really connected people to me so much. People would, like, be like, wow, I really love Natty because she's not afraid to, like, fail.
Right.
Like, I'm not afraid to show, like, yeah, we all make mistakes. I mean, I have made every mistake known to man, as far as, like, screwing up in the ring, or, having a meltdown backstage, or telling off the wrong person, or we all make those mistakes. Like, we're all human,
Yeah, for sure.
but we all grow from it. We learn from it. And, like, sometimes the most, basic things, like even just saying sorry, can fix everything, and, like, you just learn so much about yourself. I've learned so much about myself on reality TV and WWE programming.
Well, it's amazing how one matures, right? Like,
It is.
as you grow up, like, I can remember, I always wanted to help, and I was always willing to share an opinion with people. But then there was a point where a guy goes too far. And I can remember two guys who I won't name came into a locker room one time after a show. And at the time, I was somebody that they would have come to and asked what I thought of their match. And to be totally frank, it wasn't good. Like, there was no psychology to it. Like, it was kind of a mess, but the guys were in great shape. They both looked like $1 million. But they came to me, and I was walking out for my match, and I could be wrong, but I think I might've been wrestling TJ. And I was walking out for my match, and they both come through the curtain at the same time. And they go, hey, Durango, what'd you think of our match? And I go, and just then my music hits, and I walked out the curtain. And I looked back and I thought, you dick. Like, what? So now I'm looking back and actually need to reach out to those two guys and apologize, because even if it was 20 years ago, that's no way to handle your business, right? And so, perspective changes a lot of things. And I think with age, we look back at a lot of those things, and, like you say, saying sorry, sometimes that's all you got to do to fix it, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's like, just saying sorry, or just admitting that you're wrong, or just knowing that you're flawed. We're all just, that's what I love about Vince McMahon, not to name drop him, but, like, in just, like, the big scheme of things, he's such a powerful person, and he's been through everything. But, like, if he makes a mistake, at least in my own experiences with him, he's not afraid to, like, admit those vulnerabilities,
Right.
Or, go, we could have done this better. Or we should have tried this. Or, like, it's really important to understand and recognize, like, we're all flawed. I have yet to meet a perfect person. I have yet to meet anybody that hasn't made a mistake. And we can all be, we can all be better. Look at my dad, even, like there was things in my childhood that I was like, my dad missed out on this, and I wish he would have done more with this, and I wish he would have been more involved in my life. But then I look like now I understand because I'm in the same industry. I'm like, back then my dad was working like sometimes twice a day. He was on the road for like 28 days at a time. He was traveling across the globe. He was exhausted, and it was a totally different era. It was like the Wild West of pro wrestling. And now I understand, and like I really forgive my dad for a lot of things because I know that he was just doing the best that he could,
Right.
and he never had to say sorry to me for me to know that, like, I know he felt bad about certain things, but I look at him now and I hold him on a pedestal because I know how hard it is to do what we do.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And even with Brett, like Brett is, I don't think people in our family, gosh, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. A Natty exclusive.
Natty exclusive.
Even people in our own family, they don't understand sometimes like how hard it was to be in Brett's shoes.
Right.
That he was a world heavyweight champion. He was on the road 300 days a year. He had the weight of a global juggernaut type company like WWE on his shoulders. And like Brett was like iconic. Like people today, like Roman Reigns, they got into WWE because they wanted to be like Bret Hart,
right.
And like some people in our family don't understand the magnitude of what weight Brett was carrying on his shoulders. So if he, if he ever came across as having flaws, or if he ever, he was so quick to be like kind of crucified within the family by certain people, but it was like, they don't realize like how freaking talented Brett was, that he just had so much, like he had so much on his plate, and he really impacted the industry in such a huge way that like without Bret Hart, without the Montreal Screwjob, we may never have seen the Attitude Era. We may never have seen the evil Mr. McMahon character. We may never have seen the Steve Austin Vince McMahon feud. Like Bret helped do so much and launch so many people and helped so many careers, but I think sometimes like in our family, because we've all grown up around wrestling, we take it for granted a little bit, the magnitude that is Bret Hart.
Well, I think the one thing you just said that really struck home to me was that he, like you say, I mean, today WWE is $1 billion company. And I mean, I've never thought about the pressure of having that on your back, at a time, championships mean different things now, I think. But when guys like Brett were the champion, yeah, you were legit carrying, at the time, what, a $500 million a year company on your back.
Yeah.
That's, I never really had that perspective. And another thing I want to say to parents in particular, you know what I mean? Because like you say, there was stuff you knew about your dad when you were young that when you got older changed your perception. And I have to tell myself this literally every single day, that we judge other people by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. Do you know what I mean? So what we intend to do isn't always what happens. I may intend to do the right thing and may completely shit the bed, but the intention was there. So when we look at ourselves, like, yeah, I shit the bed, but I intended to do the right thing. And we don't extend that grace to other people. Yeah. And I think that, what you've kind of said is you've looked back on your childhood and extended that grace to your dad. And I think that's a really important growing thing. Not a lot of people can do that.
It is. And that's the thing, is that like, we're just all going, every single one of us just has a different journey. And like my dad, like, he, like looking back at what he did in his life, he played in the NFL. He played for the Dallas Cowboys and the Oakland Raiders. To even play in the NFL is huge. Right. He was a world-class shot putter when he was a teenager. And when he was a teenager, he was one of the best shot putters in the country, in the United States. My dad had a full scholarship to UCLA because of shot put. He ended up coming to WWE, and, he had a really successful career in WWE. But when we were growing up, my dad really struggled. He had demons. He struggled with addiction. He struggled with alcoholism. He struggled with depression. He struggled with anxiety. Those aren't things that I talk about with people. Not necessarily because I don't want to, but because it hasn't always come up. But when I look back on it, it's like my dad didn't have back in the 80s, no one was talking about anxiety. No one was talking about depression. No one was talking about, like, they were all supposed to be tough men, just get back out there, keep going, keep doing it. But my dad, like, when I look back on it, I was like, my dad really struggled with those deep things that nobody knew how to fix.
Yeah.
Nobody was talking about mental health back then.
Well, like you say, when you're wrestling 9 times a week, 4 weeks, 9 times a week, 4 weeks a month, when do you decompress to deal with that stuff? Do you know what I mean?
And I watched my dad,
thing.
like as a child, I watched my dad cope with his anxiety and cope with depression and cope with like how to handle life. How am I going to be on the road 300 days a year, provide for my family? What if I get hurt? What if something happens? What if I don't get booked right? What if I get fired? Back in the 80s, they didn't have guaranteed contracts.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I look back and go, God, my dad was just doing the best. Let me shut the door. TJ's got the TV on.
No problem.
Sorry. That was me being a brat.
Doesn't he know who I think I am? I'm a big media guy now.
But that's, when I look back on look now as adults and I'm an adult now and we're in the year 2020 or 2021, you have people like Michael Phelps talking about mental health. Yeah. You have everybody's talking about mental health and hey, you're not alone and this and that. And it's like everybody that's got a brain, all of us have gone through some stuff because nobody's brain is perfect. Yeah, but back in my dad's day, it was you got to be macho, you got to be strong, you got to be tough, you got to power through. And I think that's why, what my dad really struggled with, and we didn't know how to handle it. Yeah. My dad didn't know how to handle it, but now all these years later, I'm able to go, you know what? My dad was a pretty good dad. He did the best he could. I love him dearly. I put him on a pedestal and I get it. Yeah. I get that he was just doing the best that he knew how to do.
Well, that's why I look at all parents and they do I like to think, sure, there's some deadbeat pieces of shit out there. But I like to think that most parents do the best they can with the tools they have.
Yeah.
And really and truly, and I think that, I didn't know your dad well, that would be a lie, but I spent some time with him at the house a little bit, some time down in the dungeon. And for all intents and purposes, he was never anything but nice to me. Do you know what I mean? And so that's the only side I know of him. Do you know what I mean? So know that there's a lot of people like me that have that perception of your dad too. That's I've never known Jim to ever be kind of happy and laughing and a good guy and helping me out in the dungeon and just a downright beauty. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's, again, you never know what's going on at home, but like you say, back 30 years ago, you would never tell your friends you were depressed. You would never bring that up with your friends, or you would never say geez, man, I get back to the hotel at night and I can't sleep because I can't come down, or I can't, I can't get out of bed in the morning because I just can't push myself to get out of bed. If you said those things, you were soft or weak or, a lady, there was so much negative stigma to it. Like you say, now we have a position where, 25 years ago, if a heel got sick, the fans probably didn't care. Do you know what I mean? But when Roman Reigns got sick, it actually changed people's perception of him. Do you know what I mean? Because quite frankly, and I know this is kind of going a different way, but it's just sort of how life works, that people, when someone gets sick, you start looking at them not differently, but you start looking for the stuff you didn't see before. Okay, where's the good part of what's going on here? You know what I mean? So Roman Reigns, who couldn't get over with the fans, honestly, and for no fault of Roman's, he's a hell of a worker. He's got the gift on the mic. He looks like a god. But when he got sick, the fans took to him differently. And I think, going through lives with our parents, you sort of look back on the things they did and you think, well, it's not because they were mean or bad parents. It's because they had an illness they didn't know how to deal with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, people that acted like I do were crazy. Now I have ADHD. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference. It's still a label, but it's a much different label.
Yeah. And it's nice that people can be open and talk about these things and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. Or we can even with Morrow, for example, who was, Morrow. Yeah. He was in NXT, but he was very open about being bipolar and how he just struggled so much with his mental health. And these are really important conversations for people to have, knowing that you can be so successful at something, but also be so troubled. And that's why it's important to be compassionate to people, because you just don't know what people are going through. And sometimes just by that little bit of kindness that you can bring to somebody, it might change their whole it might change their whole perspective. It might change their whole day. And, I think with Roman, he never ever shared with any of us. Roman is a lot like Cena in the way that people would go, Cena sucks, Cena's awesome, Cena sucks.
Yeah.
Like Roman was, Roman is had a very unique career in the sense that he's polarizing.
Yes.
Which WWE loves. I feel like they love polarizing characters that people can really like get engaged talking about. Whether you love them, whether you hate them, you're talking about them. Wow. And now you see Roman diving into this heel character, and he's doing the best work in his career because he's kind of channeling something different. But we all know that he's gone through so much. Like to have gone through leukemia when you were a kid, to have it come back as an adult. It just gives him a different depth, and like it shows a different layer that like you can be on top of the world, but your world can be also crashing down at the same time.
Yeah, it
that
humanizes
you just never know what somebody's going through in their life.
For sure.
And that's the thing, is that like that's why you just can't take any day for granted. Look at Bret. I mean, Bret Hart was one of the most decorated, gifted, special pro wrestlers, most iconic, influential pro wrestlers of all time. And in one day, he has a stroke and almost dies.
Yeah. And
it's like nothing is tomorrow is not promised to anyone. So take today, enjoy it, appreciate the ones that you love, and just try to be better. Don't dwell on what happened yesterday, but just try to be better and try to be compassionate and empathetic and understanding. While putting your opponents in a sharpshooter.
You know what, Natty? I cannot think of a better way to wrap this up. Again, I'm going to do to you what I've done to TJ and Eric before you. I'm going to beg you to come on again. And this time we'll talk literally just about the dungeon and the time back in the old days. And just kind of take that trip down memory lane if you'd be okay with that.
I would love that. That'd be so awesome.
I can't thank you enough for coming on. This turned into much more than I ever expected it to be. Really and truly, Natty, I'm so thankful for you to come on the show, and just for the relationship that we've had for the last 20 plus years.
Oh, it's awesome.
With you and your family. And I mean, I was distracted earlier. My cat was down here, and I know if anyone understands that, it's you. Actually, Wendy did mention that you like a lot of her Instagram posts, and she
I love her cats. Your cats are beautiful.
Okay. Natty, thank you so much, and we'll do this again very soon.
Oh, thank you so much, Jordy. And I really appreciate it. Anything you ever need, let me know.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye, Jordy.
Bye.